factors in ovarian cancer. Though the most important single thing, high risk factors are the family history, which we already discussed. Along with that, various risk scoring factors are, this is just, you should know the names only, not much details are required for you. That is RMA score, ROCA score, ROMA score. RMI is most important out of all these scoring system. So one by one we'll take one. The RMI scoring system is called RMI index, or it is RMI full form is risk of malignancy index. So usually depends on RMI. We should know, we should have with us the ultrasound findings, levels of CA125, and menopausal status of the woman, whether she's pre-menopausal or she's post-menopausal. So scoring is find out depending on the just कुछ गड़बड़ हो गया इसमें प्रेजेंट तो पहले ही है ना. So depending on the ultrasound findings, the maximum score is 5, and depend the CA125, how much a total CA125, that has to be multiplied. So if RMI score is more than 25 to 50, it means she is high risk for malignancy. Means whatever finding she has, it is there are high chances that she might be having malignant ovarian instead of the benign ovarian. So 1.2 is these points is given. One is multilocularity in the ultrasound finding, but are things to be seen on ultrasound, whether it's bilateral, whether cytus is present or not, whether metastasis is there, the presence of solid areas, and multilocularity. If out of these, all 5 things are there, so it means total findings, total score will be 5 for the ultrasound. And total score 5 for ultrasound, M total score will be 3. So 5 into 3, 15. And depending on CA125 levels, if CA125 levels are 50, so it will come out to be 15 into 50, that is a 750. So that she will be very, very high risk for the malignancy. If on ultrasound findings, just from these, only multilocularity is there is no solid areas, no metastasis, no ascites, no bilateral lesion, so only multilocularity, the score will be 1. And if patient premenopausal, that will be again 1, 1 into 1, 1. And then if CA125 levels for her are 50, the score will be 50. So she will be moderate risk for that, and she will not be high risk for the malignant ovarian. So this is RMS score. The second is ROCA score. Again, we take in one CA125. These are to just name these. We should know these are various score. RMA is most important. ROMA is again risk of ovarian malignancy logarithm. In this, we take the CA125 and we take the HE4, which is not very commonly done in our state. So that's it is not very, very important. Then coming to most important point, how you should treat the ovarian, malignant ovarian tumors, ovarian cancers. The treatment of ovarian cancer depends on stage of the disease. As for all malignancy, treatment depends on the stage. Then again, it depends on the grading of the tumors, depends on the whether patient fertility is required or not, and age of the patient. So basically 3 types of treatments are there. Primary treatment is the surgery, chemotherapy, and then the radiation. For all malignancy, these are 3 treatment options. So it only depends whether we go for primary is surgery or primary is chemotherapy. So ovarian, we can go for both, but primary treatment is always go for the surgery because we have to remove the bulk of the tumor. Then CA cervix is the one malignancy where either we go by surgery or we go by radiotherapy. The results are almost the same. So, but for ovarian, primary treatment is surgery followed by chemotherapy or radiotherapy or both. So this is a basic principle. So what is done in surgery as is the primary treatment? So whatever surgery we do, whenever we plan surgery, the basic we say it is a staging laparotomy. So you will be asked in an exam, what is staging laparotomy for ovarian cancer? Though we do the staging, because in case of ovarian cancer, staging is done by the laparotomy. Once we open the abdomen, send the cytological, the peritoneal fluid for cytology or peritoneal washing, and then just see all the areas, ascending colon, descending colon, liver. Then we stage the disease. So that is why the staging laparotomy is done for the ovarian cancer. So then staging laparotomy can be followed by total abdominal hysterectomy, bilateral salpingophorectomy, with omentectomy as per the staging of the disease. So then we go for cytoreduction. This is the surgical treatment, staging laparotomy followed by THBSO. Or if that is not possible, we can go only for cytoreduction. Means just cytoreduction, as the name indicates, means reducing the mass of the tumor. Reduction of the mass is done. Then palliative surgery means we are not able to do much of the thing. Just to help the patient to live for a few more years, we go for the palliative surgery. So what is staging laparotomy? In this staging laparotomy, vertical incision is given to explore, to open the whole of the abdomen. The incision should be above the umbilicus, means adequate exploration is required. After giving the incision, pelvis, upper abdomen are carefully explored to see whether metastasis is there on the liver, undersurface of diaphragm, omentum. Then we take the peritoneal washings, or if a cytase is there, only cytic fluid is taken. The multiple biopsies are taken from the suspected areas or from the peritoneum, pouch of Douglas. Then frozen section is sent. The frozen, so this is again very, very important question in case of ovarian cancer. In which cases you will like to send for the frozen section? So frozen section, if patient is old age, menopausal, but it is not required. So at the same go, we go for staging laparotomy and immediately we go for the complete surgery. Mastectomy with bilateral salpingophorectomy and with omentectomy. But if patient is very young, fertility is required, only one tumor is involved or both the tumors are involved, and we want to conserve the uterus. Might be due to young age, might be due to fertility, preservation fertility. So in that patient, we remove that ovary or we remove the tumor part and send for the frozen section, wait for the report for the histopathology that usually comes within 30 minutes. And depending on the report, when we are doubtful whether it's a borderline, then also we want to go conservative. Advice for the frozen section, if it comes out to benign, then we can conserve. There is no need to remove the uterus and other parts, and only that ovary has been removed will be sufficient in young patients. So that is the role of the frozen section. So in frozen section, young woman, nulliparous with unilateral tumor, no ascites, unilateral salpingophorectomy can be done after exploration, and frozen section must be done. If subsequently in these patients found to poorly differentiated, or if washings are positive, same patient in which we removed only the one ovary, and the report says that it was a stage 3 or stage 2 was there, washings are positive, then we might have to go for the second operation after 1 week or 2 weeks and remove the uterus and the second ovary. Or if patient very young, she can wait for 1 or 2 years to conceive, have the child, and then we can go for the total hysterectomy. So this is again the surgery is a total abdominal hysterectomy. What is done in surgery? Staging laparotomy, you just diagnosed up to what extent it is there, and it is followed by TEH, BSO with omentectomy. It should be done in all the patient malignant ovarian. Whole of the omentum is removed. Then biopsy from the suspicious area, peritoneal fluid, or if lymph nodes are enlarged, might be peritoneal, para-aortic, then from that also biopsy is to be taken. So this is the main treatment, main surgical treatment for the ovarian cancers. The second is cytoreductive. So cytoreductive, where we do? When all of the tumor cannot be removed. It is so extensive. When there is possibility of metastasis is there. So our goal is to remove the primary tumor and metastasis as possible. So we go for TEH, BSO, dissection of metastatic lesion, and lymphadenectomy. So usually in advanced ovarian cancer, main aim is to decrease the volume of ovarian tumor, decrease nausea and satiety, increase the satiety, decrease the bulk of the tumor, and remove the metastasis so that patient can come to normal function as much as possible. Then optimal cytoreduction means whenever we are able to remove whole of the tumor and only less than 1 centimeter is left, that is a optimal cytoreduction. Then there is one term, primary cytoreduction at one time. Means you open the abdomen, if it is stage 3, stage 4, you are not able to remove the complete tumor, but you remove the tumor only less than 1 centimeter left, that's the primary cytoreduction. Then what is interval cytoreduction? In few patients, when you're not able to remove the tumor, you leave it inside, whatever is removed, that is removed, and then patient is followed for radiotherapy and another thing. Then at second stage, you remove, that is the interval cytoreduction. Or you can say secondary cytoreduction. When we attempt to resect the optimal bulk in selected patient following chemotherapy. Means you're not able to remove the first time. The first line chemotherapy you give, it leads to reduction in the site of the tumor, and then you go for the laparotomy. So it can be done after 3 cycles or sometimes after 6 cycles of the chemotherapy. Sometimes it is also known as second look laparotomy, followed by cytoreduction. Then third is, first was the primary surgery, staging laparotomy, followed by TEH, BSO with omentectomy with lymph node sampling. Second was cytoreduction, and third is the palliative, where you know you cannot go for complete surgery at all, just to relieve the symptoms of the patient. If bowel obstruction is there, you can go for end-to-end anastomosis. If whole of the rectum is involved, then you can just go for the ileostomy so that patient is able to pass stools. So that is a palliative surgery. If whole of the urinary bladder is involved, you can go for the ureteric implantation, cutaneous implantation, so as to relieve the obstruction of the ureters. And again, second mode of treatment are surgery chemotherapy, which is very important in case of ovarian tumors. Very important. So chemotherapy has less role in carcinoma cervix, but it is a great role in case of ovarian cancers. So the chemotherapy can be adjuvant or neoadjuvant. Adjuvant chemotherapy means when chemotherapy is given once after doing the surgery. You have done the surgery, and then if some tumor is there, you send for the report in stage 3 or stage 2B, then you have to go for the, after surgery, go for the chemotherapy. And this chemotherapy is usually given after 3 weeks of the surgery. In most cases of ovarian carcinoma, there is need of the chemotherapy. Only few cases when it is borderline or it is limited only to one ovary, second means stage 1B, you can say, then we can exempt the patient from chemotherapy, only surgery might be sufficient. But as already discussed since beginning, ovarian cancers are diagnosed in later stages. That's why in most of the cases we need the surgery followed by chemotherapy. And this chemotherapy started after 3 weeks of the surgery. We assume that within 3 weeks that tissue will heal and the chances of less of the sepsis. So after 3 weeks we start with the chemotherapy. So what are the cases where we don't give only stage 1A, grade 1, grade 2? There is no need of chemotherapy. We can go only with the surgery. If it's stage 1A but grade 3 or stage 1B, 2 high risk patients are there, then we give 3 cycles of chemotherapy. And all other stages, 3 or 4, go for the 6 cycles of the chemotherapy. There's one term everybody should know, but a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So neoadjuvant is given for the patient with very advanced carcinoma. When chemotherapy we give before the primary treatment, just we have done the CT scan, we have done the MRI, we think the stage is 3, beyond 3. So surgery might not be complete in those cases first go. If we go for surgery, we may not be able to remove the tumor. So in those patients, after making the diagnosis is usually made by the ascitic fluid aspirations, because we should have the histopathological diagnosis, which type of tumor it is. Only then we can decide the chemotherapy. If ascitic fluid is not showing, we have to go for FNAC, fine needle aspiration cytology from the tumor. After histopathology report is available, it is a stage 3 carcinoma. We think adhesion, the MRI shows that whole the tumor is adherent to rectum, it is adherent to bladder, and we think the primary surgery might be very difficult, or it might be with so many complications can be there if we do surgery at that time. So in those cases, we plan to give 3 cycles of chemotherapy prior to surgery. So that is neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So benefits of these 3 cycles of chemotherapy prior to surgery is that the subsequent surgery will be easier, rapid clinical response will be there, and chances of complete surgery will be more. The chemotherapy, which drugs are used for chemotherapy, uses the platinum. Agents are used, there is carboplatin, which is the drug of choice, but it has less ototoxicity, neuropathy. renal impairment. Another drug is paclitaxel and cisplatin. So these are the first line chemotherapy for the ovarian cancer. So most of patients are giving carboplatin or paclitaxel, but can be paclitaxel or cisplatin combinations. Paclitaxel is mostly combined any of these two drugs. The second line chemotherapy means, what is second line? Once the patient not responding to first line chemotherapy, then we start with the second line chemotherapy. So they are little more toxic drugs as compared to first line. So they are doxorubicin. You should just know the names of these drugs: gemcitabine and bevacizumab. Then how to go for the chemotherapy? Chemotherapy can be intravenous or intraperitoneal. Mostly we go by the intravenous, which is a standard therapy. So we give combination. Single agent is usually not preferred, only combination. The combination is carboplatin and paclitaxel, but if not tolerable, can be cisplatin or paclitaxel. So single agent is only given those patients who cannot tolerate multiple drugs. So single drug we are using, we use either cisplatin or carboplatin or paclitaxel, melphalan or isofamide. So these are the drugs if it is used for single agent. So what are the conditions, what are the patients where we give the intraperitoneal? So it is indicated when the optimal resection of tumor has not been less than 2 centimeter tumor is there, only in those cases we will be able to give this. If residual tumor is there, you have done the site reduction, then we can give this so as to reduce the tumor mass which is present in the peritoneal cavity. So it is again better survival is there, but more cumbersome, more toxicity and more morbidity. So we usually prefer intravenous, but sometimes if patient not tolerating this, then we can go for the intraperitoneal. Or tolerating means she is hypersensitive peptidex, so that drugs cannot be given. Another option is radiotherapy. Usually we combine with radiotherapy. So in ovarian, all sort of treatments are given. Surgery is must. Primary treatment is always a surgery. That has to be followed by chemotherapy, and sometimes we give radiotherapy as well. So it is not in all the cases. So in which cases we give the radiotherapy, and again extensive stage is there, stage 3 tumors, and patient is not tolerating chemotherapy, or more than 2 centimeter residual tumors are there, and she is not able to tolerate the chemotherapy due to side effects, then we may think of giving the radiation therapy to the abdomen. The complications are same of radiotherapy as general: diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, leukopenia, thrombocytopenia, or LFT levels can be elevated, chronic diarrhea, pneumonitis. So these are the complications of radiotherapy. So this is a flow diagram for the ovarian cancer algorithm, which we can say that suspicious is there, what investigation are to be done, go for CA195, X-ray chest, biochemistry, then FTH, BSO with staging laparotomy. If fertility preservation is required, then only unilateral self-angioplasty is done in very, very early stages, stage 1A, grade 1 or grade 2. So that is the only indication of the unilateral self-angioplasty. If stage 2, 3B, we have to go for the cytoreductive surgery. This is again a flow chart. So staging laparotomy plus frozen section. Frozen section is only in those cases where we want to preserve, do the conservative surgery, means want to preserve the uterus. Then stage 1, if it is low risk means young patient, unilateral tumor is there, or we need the fertility, we can just do the oophorectomy, follow the final treatment in these patients, in which we are doing the only unilateral oophorectomy is being done. In those patients also, once the fertility is completed, family is completed, always go for the complete surgery of TEH-BSC. It is not that you leave it like that. So after completion of the family, she has to undergo total abdominal hysterectomy with bilateral self-angioplasty. If stage 1 high risk is there, means grade 3 tumor is there, stage 1, more than stage 1, then go for total abdominal hysterectomy, bilateral self-angioplasty with omentectomy, with staging laparotomy, followed by post-operative chemotherapy. That is usually needed in most of the patient chemotherapy. If it is very advanced disease, stage 3 and more, go for the definitive surgery if possible, omentectomy, Peritoneal lymphnodectomy, sampling, resection of the tumor. ये हमारा आ गया क्या? Am I audible? Can you write in chat box, anybody? Am I audible? Okay, thank you. I will continue. Some net problems are there today. एक बार देखें कुछ गड़बड़ हो रही है इसमें आज ना ये. Sorry, just give me 1 minute to clear the things. ये ना गलती से शेयर हो गया, इसको प्रेजेंट करना है. ये गलती से शेयर हो गया, प्रेजेंट करना है इसको. प्रेजेंट किया, शेयर हो गया. Okay. Today some network issues are there, so sorry for that. So in advanced disease, we do omentectomy is done in all the patients. Retroperitoneal lymph node sampling and resection of the metastatic tumor, or if it is not possible, we go for debulking surgery, that is also called a cytoreductive surgery. And after the cytoreductive surgery, sometimes we give the chemotherapy, and after chemotherapy, if possible, if we think the tumor size is reduced a lot, we can go for the second local laparotomy and remove whole of the tumor after 3 cycles of chemotherapy. So next important question, what is the prognosis of epithelial ovarian tumor? So as for all other malignancies, the prognostic factor depends on the histopathological type and grading the tumor and staging. Histopathologic, grading and staging, these are 3 things. So histopathological, if the clear cell or mucinous type or grade 3 type of tumors are there, now clear cell or mucinous, they have very, very poor prognosis. Grading, grade 3 type of tumor will have, grade 1 and grade 2 have a little better prognosis, but grade 3 have poor prognosis. Then clinical staging depends on FIGO staging. More the staging, poorer the prognosis. Then if residual disease left after primary treatment is more than 2 centimeter, again very, very poor prognosis. If at first stage large amount of ascites is there, again poor prognosis. If patient near menopausal or very young, again poor prognosis. Then performance status means how the patient is performing. Just observe for 3 months after the surgery or after treatment. If better response is there, then better prognosis, otherwise poor prognosis. If metastatic disease is more than 10 centimeters, again very, very poor prognosis. So these are the factors on which prognosis of the tumor depends. Then how we see for the response of the treatment? How to follow the patient basically. Once you have done the surgery, after surgery you give the chemotherapy, which is usually given for 6 cycles. How to follow the patient, whether she is responding well or not, that is by the tumor markers which are repeated and by the ultrasound CT MRI PET depending on the criteria. So how much is survival rate? If it is stage 1A, 1B, low risk means only grade 1 and grade 2. Very high survival rate is there, 92% 5-year survival rate by, and surgery only is a treatment. As already told, if it is stage 1A or 1B, only grade 1 or 2 means limited to 1 ovary. We can just do the simple oophorectomy, or family is completed, go for the total abdominal with bilateral self-injection. So 92% survival rate. But very, very few patients are diagnosed in these stages. If it is 1A, 1B with high risk, means grade 3 tumors are there. Then also prognosis is from 80 to 88% of the prognosis for 5-year survival rate. Stage 2, as staging increases, it is only 60 to 70%. Just remember, very, very simple to remember, low stage 1A, 1B, low risk, means grade 1, grade 2, 90% prognosis. Stage 1A, 1B, high risk, means grade 3 tumors, prognosis will be 80 to 90%. If stage 2, 60 to 70%, easy to remember. If stage 3, it will be only 20 to 50%. Stage 4, very, very poor prognosis, only 12 to 20% is the 5 years survival. Most of the patient, if we lose the patient within 1 to 2 years of diagnosing of stage 4, if not treated in a good way. Then follow-up, it is again important. You've done the surgery, you've done the chemotherapy. Patient should be followed up every 3 monthly for 2 years. Okay. Then after 2 years, every 6 monthly for 5 years. So this is general rule for all the malignancy. Even if follow the patient CA service, again 3 months, follow the patient of HMOL, anything, any malignancy. Usually general principally 3 months, 3 monthly for 2 years, 6 monthly for 5 years, yearly for 5 years. Okay, just simple rule. 3 monthly 2 years, 6 monthly for 3 to 5 years, and after 5 years every year. So what is to be done in these follow? Do the complete physical examination, do the pelvic examination, and do the CA125 or any other tumor markers. If it is epithelial tumor marker, then we go for CA125. If it was dysgerminoma and other, we can go for the tumor marker depending on the type of the tumor. Then we have to say lymph node, that can be depending on if we're suspecting anything. Ultrasound is done in all the patients on follow, but CT and PET scan, if indicated. If we suspect anything, then we go for the CT scan and PET scan. We have to, at every visit, we have to take the detailed history, examination, local examination, abdominal examination, general physical examination, and X-ray annually. Then again, mammography is a very, very important part because they are more likely to land up with the CA breast also. Ultrasound is to be done 6 monthly. Then coming to, this was about epithelial tumors or general tumors, you can say. Some few words about the germ cell tumors of the ovary. So these germ cell tumors can be dysgerminoma, immature teratoma, endodermal sinus tumor site. So the tumor marks are a little different. As I told, epithelial tumor was CA125, but for germ cell tumor, dysgerminoma, LDH is the tumor marker. For immature tumor teratoma, it can be beta HCG. Then endodermal sinus tumor, again alpha fetoprotein is there. So remember, dysgerminoma LDH, immature teratoma beta HCG, and endodermal sinus tumor alpha fetoprotein. So treatment pattern will be same for all malignancies. Tumor markers different, the chemotherapy little different, but usually surgery is same for all the tumors. The surgery will go for primary surgery and all, depending on age of the patient, staging of the disease, whether to preserve the uterus or not. Then the chemotherapy is different, as I told. In case of dysgerminoma, chemotherapy. For epithelial tumor, it is, just remember, very, very simple to remember. Carboplatin, cisplatin, and paclitaxel. These 3 drugs. If you remember only these 3 drugs, nobody can fail you in the exam for epithelial ovarian tumor. But for dysgerminoma, little different, the BEP regime. Bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin. Sometimes radiotherapy can also be, but they're very sensitive to radiotherapy. Dysgerminoma is one tumor which is sensitive to radiotherapy. Otherwise, I told you radiotherapy has a very, very less role in case of ovarian malignancy. But radiotherapy has the primary role in case of CA cervix. Yes, I'm doing the comparison, but very important, should know. In carcinoma cervix, radiotherapy is very, very important. I told radiotherapy and surgery has almost the same prognosis, and chemotherapy is the least role in CA cervix. But in this ovarian carcinoma, CA cervix is very, very important. This chemotherapy is very important role along with the surgery. So radiotherapy can be used in few tumors, patient not responding to radiotherapy, not tolerating, or in case of dysgerminoma. So another tumors in this germ cell tumors, one is dysgerminoma, immature, another one are embryonal carcinoma. This embryonal carcinoma, should know, it is a usually tumor which is young age, usually diagnosed adolescent at the age of 14 years. Very, very poor prognosis. I have seen about 7-8 cases of embryonal carcinoma till now in very young girls. You will surprised to know even at 13 years of age, small girls come with tumor, this ovarian tumor, and usually we cannot save the patient. They survive only for 5 to 6 years. Very highly malignant tumor is there. Embryonal carcinoma, young age, then choriocarcinoma of ovary. Again, the prognosis is not very good. The tumor marker is beta SCG. And embryonal cell carcinoma, it is alpha fetoprotein and beta SCG. The mixed germ cell tumor in which any type of dysgerminoma endodermal sinus component is combined. Again, these have a very poor prognosis. Coming to dysgerminoma, which is a commonest tumor of the germ cell. So germ cell tumor, dysgerminoma is a commonest tumor. So this dysgerminoma, what are the things you should remember about this dysgerminoma? The tumor markers are LDH. You should remember only LDH, that is sufficient for you. And it is a variant counterpart of testicular seminoma. Commonest malignant germ cell tumor, 30 to 40%. And most of H24, it is usually unilaterally. To begin with, they are unilateral tumors. Mostly common ovarian malignancy is there and can be seen in young age, in the adolescent age group, not in the children. I told you, embryonal cell carcinoma seen in very young girls, might be 13, 14, before puberty sometimes. And the dysgerminoma is seen in adolescent, means around 18 to 20 years or might be 24 years. The first time patient can be diagnosed detecting only pregnancy because young patient is there and it may be asymptomatic. The risk factors for dysgerminoma, Turner syndrome, if it is 46XY or 45X, Klinefelter syndrome, Swyer syndrome. If Klinefelter syndrome is there or other syndrome, if we always see if chromosomal pattern is 46XY, once patient come, always we say remove the gonads. So that is the reason of removing the gonads in patients with 46XY, with these mosaicisms. Because if we don't remove the gonads, there are more chances that she might land up with dysgerminomas. So this is a picture of the dysgerminoma, gross appearance. They are usually well-defined tumors, lobulated, fleshy tumors, smooth surface, capsulated. Can you see? There is no exogency, it's very smooth, lobulated, firm in consistency. And cystic generation, few areas can be, though in this week I cannot see the cystic generation, but sometimes cystic generation can be there. Focal calcification area are there. Uniform pale 10, the size usually can be 10 to 15 centimeters. So on microscopy, what is to remember dysgerminomas? It is, I told, picture is like a seminoma of testis. So this is the pattern which can see. Aggregated islands of large uniform cells are there. So only this thing, two things are to be remembered by you, seminoma, like seminoma of the testis, and islands of large uniform cells surrounded by connective tissue containing lymphocytes. If dysgerminoma is diagnosed, if it is confined only to one ovary, they are not very malignant. You can go for unilateral oophorectomy young ages, inspect the other ovary. If family is completed, again same treatment is go surgical staging followed by the complete treatment. If metastatic disease, again go for the complete treatment. Remember the chemotherapy is BEP regime. Bleomycin, etoposide and paclitaxel. Again it is to be given for 6 cycles. Another tumor is immature teratoma. Again, it has a 25% chance of malignancy. It is made from all the 3 germ cells, common in first 2 decades of the life, and again they are mostly unilateral. As dysgerminoma was there unilateral, these are also mostly unilateral. So if anybody asks you which is the tumor more malignant in germ cell tumor, the more malignant tumors are the endodermal sinus tumor and the clear cells. Endodermal, it is seen usually in the younger age group, might be 13 to 15 years, most malignant tumor. Then coming to another type of epithelial tumor is sex-coat tumor. After the germ cell tumors is a sex-coat tumors. A common tumor is a granulosa cell tumor. These granulosa cell tumors are thecoma. They include granulosa cell tumors, thecoma and fibromas. Cells of granulosa cell tumor produce the estrogenic elements, and they are mostly less commonly, androgenic tumors are less, but mostly they are estrogenic. As the name suggests, They rise from granulosa cells. What the granulosa cell produce in the ovary? The granulosa cell produces the follicles and leading to production of the estrogens. And they may secrete some other products like inhibin and Mullerian inhibitory factor. But for you people, it is just sufficient to remember these are the estrogenic producing tumors. Another tumor from the granular cell is the sertolin leading cell, which usually produce the androgens. And if more of androgens are produced, they can cause symptoms of virilization. That is why once any patient with hirsutism comes to you, we say, what are the investigations to be done? If extensive hirsutism is there, the first common diagnosis we make is the PCOS. Then we always go for the androgen levels. If the androgen levels are very high, then always suspect that she might be having some ovarian tumor, that is a Sertoli leading cell tumor, which produces lot of the androgens. And again, if patient is post, so you may be asked one question: if post-menopausal woman, what are symptoms of ovarian tumor? Till now, we have discussed symptoms of ovarian tumor, ovarian mass, dyspepsia, breathing. But one important symptom, if any post-menopausal woman is coming with ovarian tumor and she is having bleeding PV, what we think? The first diagnosis with ovarian tumor with bleeding PV, we might think that she might be having granulosa cell tumor. And these tumors are again present extremes of the ages in menopausal because these tumors produce the estrogens. If patient is menopausal, so this estrogen will lead to endometrial hyperplasia, and that endometrial hyperplasia will lead to postmenopausal bleeding. So granulosa cell tumor is an important cause of postmenopausal bleeding in old ladies. If it is associated with, though we will not say the first cause will be the endometrial carcinoma, but last might be the. So other tumors, Sertoli leading cell, and the other tumors can be lipoid cell, ovarian sarcoma, and then liposarcoma. So now you start marking your attendance. I'm giving 5 minutes to mark your attendance.